Hi there. So today we have an interesting topic. Today we're going to be talking about why fighters and fight teams are bad for business. I want to start out by saying that, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being a fighter or a competitor. If you're watching this and you have a burning passion to do that, then you should do that. Absolutely 100%. I assume if you're watching this video, you know me or know of me. Just to tell you a little bit more of my background. I started this business at this time, it was 15 years ago. For the first 4, 5 years, 6 years, we were a monster fight team. I ran the whole show. I had about 50 competitors. I had hundreds of competitors over that time, but at one time I had 50 competitors at once. And we traveled around the country fighting and doing that thing. And it was it was a great experience. I wouldn't take it back, but I learned a lot of things from this. So personally, I've had 30 fights myself. I've cornered well over 1,000 fighters. Been involved in that fight game for a long time. Traveled around the world fighting. I have plates in my arm to prove it. I have plates in my neck to prove it. So what I'm going to tell you today is not something that I learned secondhand. This is something that I know from experience, and I went through a lot of trial and error to come to this point to figure it out. And today I'm just going to share that information and share why. I would never tell someone not to compete. I am simply telling you what will happen if you do. This is the point of this video, okay? So in the training module here, there's a list, and I'm going to kind of read the list to you, explain it, and give you some stories to kind of solidify the facts, okay? So as managers, our job is to provide a work atmosphere that is as stress-free as possible and to provide a reasonable living for the people that work for us. For the location managers, to provide a very good living. And the only way to do that is to have a sustainable income, because we are running a business. And this business has been developed so that we can scale and have multiple locations and pay our people what they deserve to be paid. There's a reason that you don't see competition schools opening chains and being able to give staff members great financial opportunities. There's a reason for that. And this is what we're going to go over today, and I'm going to tell you why, okay? So the first series that we're going to go over here is students. Student competitors, what they'll bring to the martial arts school and how it's going to negatively impact your culture and finances of the business. So competitors are generally young people, not men. I mean, it's usually young guys between the ages of 18 to 26. We have a lot of females that fight now too. But these people at this stage in their life are not financially stable. They're just starting out life. They just moved out. Maybe they're still in college, whatever. They're not financially stable. They don't have a lot of responsibilities. They don't have kids. They're probably not married. Like, we all have been through that, and that's fine. That's normal. That's a fun time in life. That's fine. But the problem is if you have a whole studio that is full of those people, it's just then the studio is not financially stable. There's a ton of cancellations. There's a ton of delinquencies because these people are paycheck to paycheck. So for that point alone, it just becomes impossible to pay staff or to have any money left over for an owner. Yes, I ran a school that had a lot of competitors, but I wore all the hats. I did everything, okay? I worked 80, 90 hours a week. I had people beat me up all day long. And hey, when I was 22, 23, that was fine. That was okay. But you can't do that forever, and you can't do that when you have a family, okay? So the amount of people that really want to compete before they get into your martial arts school, I would say is less than 2%. I'm talking about people that walk in and say, hey, I want to fight. You'll find that those type of personality traits generally don't stick long. Because think about that. If you've never had martial arts experience and you walk in the door and you say you want to fight, what kind of mental state are you in, right? You want to get into a cage and you want to fight someone and you've never trained. Usually that type of person probably doesn't know what the amount of work that it takes to build to that level to be a legitimate competitor. Competitors are born inside of the martial arts school, okay? So that means that you have a fight culture already in your school. They come in and you put that into them if you're the coach. It generally is not them just walking in the door. Okay, so that point is going to make sense more as we go through this training module. So competitors require a large amount of attention from instructors and from their coaches. This is rightfully so, right? They have a big competition coming up. They want your attention. We're going to talk about this more later, but you have to manage them. You have to corner them. They want your attention during classes. In order to have a sustainable business, we really have to cater to our herd. And our herd, if we're managing the school right, is the people that want to do this for self-defense and for fitness, right? The everyday Joe that wants to, not necessarily wants to compete, they just want to learn how to defend themselves and better themselves as a person through fitness. Just to tell you a few little stories, later on here, we're going to get into the uprising portion. But I'm going to tell you just a few stories to kind of make this make sense and tell you about the ups and downs that I went through as a coach and as an owner. And I'm going to say, like, luckily, if you're watching this video, because of the things that I went through, hopefully you don't go through this stuff. Because to be honest, like, it was very, very difficult. There was many times when I thought about just throwing in the towel. Many times. Okay. So for example, I'm not going to name any names, but I had this guy that came in and, kind of at the time, really quiet guy, probably not the most popular person in school, type of a person, really nice guy. And anyways, he came in and he didn't really want to fight to begin with, but I was a fighter, right? So everybody decided they want to fight because I fought. It was just the culture that I had. And he got involved, man. We had unlimited classes at the time. He'd come to like 6 classes a week, and he got really, really involved. He kind of became a leader, and he had never had a sense of leadership before, like ever had people look up to him. He was an extremely hard worker. And he did some fights, and he actually won a few amateur belts. He had won most of his fights. I think he had 10 fights. And, I love the guy. Fighting is a super intimate relationship. Right, you train this guy for battle, and you go and you corner him, and you do this whole thing, and it's just like it's almost like a love relationship. It's crazy to think, but it's super, super close when you're with these people. And so, anyways, he goes to these fights, and through fighters, there's always drama between fight teams. There's always people talking, as you see on like UFC. That's how fighters are. A lot of them, like they talk crap, and that's fine, but. So anyways, he got exposed to all this drama at fights and people talking negatively about me that have never met me before, talking negatively about our program and our team and whatever. So, he decided to go to a competing school, like a business competitor that also had a fight team. Then at the time, like I had a strict policy. I would tell guys like, hey, if you want to be part of our team, you train with us. Nothing to do with money, simply because of the fact if you go and train at another competitor, you see our style. Like our style is to get on top of you and grind you out and dart choke you and beat you up. And we had a pretty slick triangle game from the bottom as well. We used the cage a lot to take people down. Like that was our style. If you go train with our competitors, you're showing them what our plans are when we fight you. So, like a lot of our business was based on how we do as competitors. Like that was a threat to us. And everybody understood that. It was just kind of a respectful thing to do. You want to be with us, you be with us. So anyways, he went to a competitor, and the competitor was actually one of my first coaches, like a guy I respect a lot, extreme respect for the guy. I still know him today. We're good friends. And, he was over there, and just this guy was just running his mouth, spreading gossip about me because he had heard gossip from other fights, right? And he ended up taking other of our classmates and if his teammates were students of our school over there. So I heard this from my old coach, and I ended up having to let the guy go, right? Because it's just like I cannot deal with the stress in my life, and he's pulling people away from me. And when I did that, guess what? There was an uprising, and I lost like 15 of my people. And we were in a big gym at that time, okay? And like I barely could pay bills, and it was stressful enough as it was, and I could barely pay my rent, okay? So that's one story of a few I'm going to share with you. And the reason that we have, and I'm sharing this with you today, is that because, number one, I don't want to go through that again. And number two, I don't want the people that work for me to go through that stress. Because, respectfully, as a staff member, you wouldn't put up with 10% of that stress. You would find something else. And I don't know why you wouldn't. You would do something else because it's not worth it. So, just a little story, kind of a background on why some of these ideas are being brought up today. So to be a legitimate competitor, I know, because I was one, you have to be extremely self-centered. You must be, because the game is you. Like, It's a football game and you're the only player. That's it. It's about you. It's not about a team. Yeah, you might train with the team, but it's about you. If you ever gone to a fight gym, like you'll notice everyone is an individual. They're all wearing different uniforms. They got their own gis. They got their own get up. They got their name on. They have their, like might have their fight name on their shirt, whatever. Like it's about individuals, and that is fine. That's okay, because you have to be. But when it comes to building a strong business, you have to have camaraderie amongst the team. Adult students especially have to feel bonds between them, because they might come for fitness, but they're going to stay for community, right? And if you have fighters, that does not happen, right? Like they're almost competing with each other, especially when they're sparring, okay? So that's another reason. Also, these fighters are going to gauge themselves off of their coach. They're going to go 100% with you, because that is how they can tell they're getting better outside of competing, is if they can beat you up or not, right? And if you're an instructor, hey, that's cool. That's cool when you're 20 to 25, somewhere in there, When I first started the gym, I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and have private lessons. I'm not exaggerating. Private lessons on and off, starting at 5 in the morning until 5 at night. I would start classes, 2-hour Muay Thai and MMA classes, until about 10 o'clock at night. And I would have my fighters testing themselves on me all day long, right? My joints are messed up. My knees pop out of place. I got plates in my body. Wouldn't take it back, but it is not the life for everyone. When it comes to trying to retain a staff member and build a legitimate business where people can support their lives and their families, it is very difficult to have that type of culture and expect that out of people, okay? And I can't expect people to work 80, 90 hours a week either. It's just very difficult when we're trying to build a business. So another interesting fact is that our business margin is 30%. So what that means, let's just say, for example, these are not accurate numbers. Let's just say, for example, a business brings in $10,000 this month. If you have a 30% margin, that means that only $3,000 is left to pay out salaries and profit share at the end of the month. So you have rent and utilities and software and marketing and all that stuff. There's only 30% left over. And that's actually a really good margin for most businesses. And many businesses, it's much less, but ours is 30, okay? So about 30% of our clientele is adults, okay? So what that basically means is that if we lose our adult students, or if our adult students, the foundation isn't good, that there is no money left over at the end of the month to pay out profit shares and to pay out any money to the owner or anything. So that's another reason why having a solid adult program is important. You may look at your martial arts school and say, like I got 80% kids or 70% kids, like that's the herd. Well, yes, it is the herd, but if you lost 30% of that herd, there is no more money for anybody to get paid, okay? So that's a pretty important part when you have a job. So a misconception among people that fight, or like beginner fighters, is that there is the possibility of earning a legitimate financial career, to have a financial career from this, and that is simply wrong. With the exception, if you are the top 30, 40 people in the world. And if you don't believe me, go check out how much people get paid in the UFC. There's people that fight in the UFC in the prelims that still make $5,000 or $6,000 a fight. And I guarantee you they are in the hole probably $15,000, $20,000 from their training camp, right? If you have wrestled your entire life and maybe did jiu-jitsu from the age 10 and you are just a killer athlete, then by all means chase that dream. But people need to understand that the idea of making money at this is not a real thing. So what happens then is that people end up doing this for recognition and to fulfill an inner ego. Nothing wrong with that. Completely normal when you're young. That is fine, okay? But the problem is that it's conflicting when we're trying to build a business. We're trying to build a staff team that has a lot of camaraderie and they're there for each other, and then it just doesn't work. Like, you got to be about you if you're a fighter. That's just how it is, right? And your main priority when you have a fight coming up will not be to bring on new students, or to have a good quality class, or to talk to that kid that's getting bullied, or to talk to that mother that's upset because something you're doing. Like, the regular business things don't matter. And I will tell you from experience, when I was fighting, like, I would watch my income Like if I wasn't fighting or prepping for a fight, there would be like an increase in my income like this. When I prep for a fight, it would go like this, okay? Along with emotions as well. You live this up and down life, okay? Which again, if we're trying to build a good, mentally stable, financially stable team of staff members, you see how that's conflicting. So, like I mentioned before, I went into this a little bit, but a lot of times when you have competitors, it develops a clique. And what I mean by a clique is like, if you have 30 people, you'll have 10, 12 people that compete. And that is the clique. Like, they're it, right? Everybody looks up to them and wants to be them because they're brave enough to get in the cage or get on the mat and fight or whatever, right? And what happens is that clique kind of becomes like a union. They almost put themselves, they do put themselves sometimes, not all the time, just my experience, above their coach or above the owner of the business. And if you don't provide them what they need, they go. And they don't just walk out the door like a regular student would. Generally, there's a lot of emotion in that as well. And they tend to slander the brand and they tell lots of people bad things, leave bad reviews. It's just a really, really ugly thing. So they require a lot. And these cliques, just like as you know with unions, I'm sure, are really, really bad for business and anybody working for it. I had a guy that was a fighter of mine, and he was kind of like a leader of one of these cliques. And I remember, I think I was maybe doing business for 3 years, I went to one of his fights. And he was a pretty good athlete. Like, he wrestled through school, and anyways, he fought another really good wrestler, and he got beat. And, you know, anytime one of my guys got beat like I got beat, I took it very, very personally. And we were in the back locker room, and he tells me that the reason he lost his fight was because I upped my private lesson fee. So remember when I told you I did private lessons? I started private lessons at $15 an hour. That's what I valued myself at. I worked for a moving company before, and I made like $10 an hour. So I said, man, if I can make $15 an hour, that's pretty good, right? So mind you, I'm the owner. I have expenses. This is $15 an hour net. I probably netted $2 an hour doing this. And I upped my rates to $25 an hour. That's why he lost his fight. So remember I was talking about the bonds that you have with people, right? That's like getting your heart ripped out of your chest. Not a good feeling. Okay, so I'm going to go on now. I know this is a long video. I apologize, but if this is a topic you're dealing with as a staff member, or maybe you're even as a manager, or maybe even if you're a staff member and you're thinking about fighting or you are fighting, this probably is interesting to you. And again, I'm not trying to do it to deter anyone or talk bad about fighters. I just want you to understand what I've went through so you know why we have the policies and the rules that we do. Okay, so next up, staff members that want to compete and become competitors. First off, when you are a fighter, you get injured all the time. I have plates in my body, joints in my body to prove it. You are injured all the time. It's part of being a fighter, right? Some people can work through it. Like I remember I broke my arm in half, and the next week I had that arm behind my back, and I learned how to hold pads with one hand, right? You do what you got to do. But not everyone is going to go to that level. So what happens is those fighters are off. Mind you, they get sick sometimes. Maybe their grandma dies. Like other things happen in life, a reason why you have to take off work. But then you get injured in training and in fights. And what happens is we have to pull other managers or pull other floats or location assistants over to assist. And that puts a strain on everybody else, and it puts a strain on the entire business as a whole, okay? So especially if you're a location manager, like the injuries play a toll not only on you and your stress level in your business, but everybody around. So the success of each individual location and business lies heavily on the focus of the location manager and the head instructor, or anybody working in that, but especially if you're the leader. When you are training for a fight, your focus is on one thing. It better be on one thing, right? Because if not, this is a dangerous thing to do, okay? So because you have a one direction focus, your focus is not on the business. It's not about you making money. It's not about taking in new students or helping the guy that just got beat up the other day, helping him learn how to defend himself. Like none of the character development any of the important things that we're going to do to change lives, that is not on your mind. You are focused on one thing as you should be. You see how that is a conflict, right? It becomes very, very hard to manage a person like that, and you just can't give the service that our people pay, our people pay good money for. So the way that this business has been built is that we're scaling to multiple locations, and that each location has a location manager that makes a salary that's just as good as like a nurse or a police officer or a teacher, and in many times much, much better than that, with a nice benefit package on top of it. Okay, so we want to provide people with a life that is fun and they enjoy, they're working their passion, they're helping people, they're feeling fulfilled, right? So in order for that to happen, there has to be a solid financial backing in order for that to happen. And as you're finding out today, that is very, very difficult when you have competitors. And then lastly, I touched on this a little bit earlier, but when you go to competitions, whether that's jiu-jitsu competitions or MMA competitions or kickboxing or whatever, there is a ton of emotion, there's a ton of testosterone, and that is very addictive, especially when you're young. Okay, super addictive, man. You're gonna get in there and fight, you're gonna go party. Like I remember when I was involved, man, it would be a horrible training camp and you'd work, never have a social life, right? And then all of a sudden, man, fight night comes and you win, and there's women, and you probably go out and you party after, and it's just like a high, crazy. But the problem is it comes back down much deeper because you got to go into another fight camp, and all the drama that you were exposed to at the fight, and that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so because of all of that testosterone and young energy that you have, everyone is talking to each other constantly, gossiping about your team, gossiping about your coach, gossiping about you, right? That happens. I will say, and I'm proud to say, I did not get involved in that. I had lots of it talked to about me, but I did never, ever would gossip against someone else, right? You take the high road. And I think that is some of the reason why we're still here. Every competitor or competition team that we had as like a business competitor is no longer here. They were gone 10 years ago, right? And I think that had something to do with it. So what we found is that when employees go to these fights, they hear all this negativity, and because you're so young and so impressionable, like, you'll take on that same person. I'm not saying if you're watching this video that's not you, but a lot of times you'll become the trash talker because everybody else is. And through that trash talking, you hear negative things about the people that manage you, your superiors, and you start believing it. It's just, there's no reason to be exposed to that, and I've had a lot of relationships ruined because of that. I've made the mistake when I was young that the people that work for me kind of became buddies or friends. They worked for me, they were a fighter, like I was their coach, I was so many things to them. And all the drama and the craziness that went on, every time they left, it was like they left, like we like broke up as friends, we broke up as a martial art coach, we broke up as an employee manager relationship. Every time that happened, they like take a piece from me, right? Maybe you've managed a school and you lose a student, right? Well, imagine that times 3 or 4 every time that happens. And if you're in a management position where you're managing some staff, like I am right now, when that happens to a staff member, same thing, like your heart gets ripped out every time, okay? It's just not something that you want to deal with, all right? So I hope that this video gives you some insight on why we have some of the policies that we do. Again, never telling anyone not to do this, but for the way that we're going, what our mission is to provide people with a good service and provide staff with a good, reasonable living that they can support their families on. Competitors in the fight game don't blend. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.